Welcome to NEK-VT Rocks, and my guests today are
Jenna Slatke, volunteer for Seymour Thrifts.
And Casey Winterson, the Director of Economic and Community-Based Services at Northeast Kingdom Community Action.
Wow, that's an impressive title.
It's a lot longer than I think. It's a long one.
It's longer than NEKCA.
Yeah.
And NEKCA, for those who don't know NEKCA, just give us a quick overview of who NEKCA is.
Yeah, of course. So Northeast Kingdom Community Action is a anti-poverty association. We're part of the Vermont Community Action Partnership, which is 5 community action agencies across the entirety of the state, covering all of the different counties here in Vermont. And we are focused on bringing folks who are living within poverty out of poverty by supporting them through transitions with supports that we have, often funded by grant funds.
Right. And right now, that's a really challenging thing to be.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging place to be now with the new federal administration. There's a lot of questions in the air, as I think a lot of us are sitting in this place of like the unknown right now. We hear, every day feels like a new kind of punch or jab.
Right.
And it's really, right now, it's a lot of dodging and weaving and trying to get through the times and kind of also at the same time get a good understanding of what it's going to look like as we kind of cross the horizon and go into these new possible pulls of federal dollars, and it's challenging.
Yeah, it's actually insane.
Yeah.
I can say that. It's not only insane, it's very hard for those of you working in that environment to keep your sanity during it. It's very stressful.
Yeah, it's definitely stressful to, come in every day and kind of look at the newspaper, look at the whatever
Right.
it may be on the phone, and see kind of what shoe dropped overnight.
Right, and what does that actually mean?
Right.
And is there another shoe following, or are we picking up the first one?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Interestingly, that's the sort of uncertainty that the people you're trying to help have been living with for a really long time.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great point to really think about is, we don't always operate in the space of the unknown.
Right.
And when we are forced to operate in the space of the unknown, similar to the folks that we serve at NEKCA, it really paints a good picture of the difficulty that folks living below the poverty line are facing on a day-to-day basis.
Right, and just one more piece of straw on the top of that is enough to tip somebody over the edge.
Correct, yeah.
It's really hard, which then brings us to Seymour, which is the thrift store that you actually brought back into life. How many years ago now? I have historical memory
2 or
here.
3, yeah, two. So we've had the thrift store operating
Right.
for over 20 years at this point,
Yes.
and the only shutdown that we had was during COVID. And then I started right after COVID at NEKCA, and one of the first things on my to-do list was we've got this really cool thrift store in Newport, and we want to bring it back to its former glory. So we worked really diligently to get that. We hired a couple of great staff, brought on some great volunteers, opened up, and it's been nothing but successful.
Right, and everybody loves it. They love the marketing, they love going in there. It's warm, it's friendly, there's so much good quality stuff.
Yeah, it certainly has turned into a community hub for Newport.
Yes.
Folks coming in to talk to Dan and Steve when they were in,
Right.
Grabbing a cup of coffee or tea or
Exactly.
water, whatever it may be, sitting in those front windows.
It's the community center we've all said we needed.
Right.
We'd like it to be bigger, we'd like it to be so many other things.
Right.
But it was a fabulous start. So fast forward to a Facebook post. Isn't it amazing how we get our news from social media
Right.
saying, oops, the thrift store's gone?
Yeah, so as a result of one of the executive orders, some of the dollars that we were receiving from some of our grants were kind of put up as a possible pullback, which resulted in NEKCA needing to really look and prioritize kind of thinking about the forward future, and if the dollars were to be pulled, kind of stemming the bleeding that would happen.
Right.
And
So NECA was asked to have a crystal ball, which of course wasn't possible.
Right.
But the immediate band-aid was close the thrift store,
Right.
at least for now, but keep it open for things that you already had committed to, right?
Right. So we still are open. We're not open for regular sales, but we are open to continue our voucher program that we have. So folks can come to any one of our locations, but 70 Main Street is one of our kind of main hubs in the community that folks will come in, and we'll get them signed up for a voucher. We also are partnered with a couple of different agencies and community partners here in Newport that get folks access to clothes, whether they're coming out of the correction system and don't have the clothes they need, or they're going for a job interview and they need something new and fresh to really impress on that first day. We're still operating in that way, but
Okay.
much
So
minor.
moving on from the organizational piece, which is really important background here, you come in at this point, Jenna. How did you get involved, and how have you created it seems to be a juggernaut moving at its own pace here, which is great.
I started volunteering, or I went in one day to shop and started volunteering, signed up to volunteer in November or October of this year. They were looking for volunteers.
Sure.
And I was interested in volunteering, and I told them that, I also have like eBay experience, because I know they wanted to start, or was talking about starting something for eBay, because they get a lot of donations that are like things that the average person just doesn't want and might not buy, but could be sold more for online. So I have experience with that, and told them about that. And I came in, and they hadn't really gotten any eBay thing off the ground, but I helped in like the back with stocking and pricing, and just kind of helping with like sweeping and cleaning up, and volunteered my times on Fridays and Saturdays.
And then when you got the bad news, what
There
happened?
was the community action. I believe that was it Denise who said that she wanted to do some more, and she wanted a meeting, and I went to the meeting there, and we talked about everything that was going on and how we could make it go forward as like a volunteer 100% run. And I decided, well, everywhere I go, I kind of take like meeting minutes, because it helps me keep it in my brain. And so I kind of became like the meeting minute person. So I've been taking meeting minutes, and they're on our group on Facebook if people want to read them. But that's what I started doing. So that's kind of how I started
So you
with
may not
helping.
have set out to be the organizer for this, but that's who you are. That's great.
We're so thankful for Jenna.
Yeah.
I do not do well at taking meeting minutes, so it's great
Neither do I.
it's great to have someone that is there writing everything down.
Yeah.
It's really helpful, and it's a really great place. So like Jenna said, we have a Facebook that's specific to the volunteers.
Yeah.
And that's where all of this information is located, and folks can check it out to see what's going on, and also drop a line if they're interested in helping out.
So moving forward, how are you planning as volunteers to do this?
So we have a Google Drive that we put together, and then we have our contact information in the Google Drive. We put all our agenda and meeting minutes, and we're going to put like a spreadsheet I'm working on of scheduling to see who's available at what time, and then Casey has some job descriptions that we're going to kind of put together, and then we'll put it out there to our Facebook group, and then the other volunteers first, and then the Facebook group, to kind of see who's interested in what. And that's kind of at the point we are right now, is trying to figure out who are going to be doing like the main things thrift store wise, and working on that part.
How many volunteers do you have? Potential volunteers, let me rephrase that, because interest is not necessarily action, as I'm sure you know.
We have, I'm going to say about, on the list, I want to say under 20 people who are on the list.
Wow.
There's different people who come to each meeting each time, and more people show interest, so then we add them to the volunteer list. So I don't know if they'll actually sign up to do volunteer in the store, or if they'll volunteer to do something else, but we've gotten about 3 or 4 people who have expressed interest via Facebook, and we've added them on there. And then some of the people who were volunteers previously are wanting to volunteer, and then all the people who have been attending the volunteer meetings, like I said, we put their email address in there, and then we'll contact them and put the schedule out to them and see what they want to do.
How do you visualize this going forward? I mean, do you have a plan for opening? I'm talking as if this is a done deal, it's going to happen, but I don't know that you're in that place yet.
We plan on opening the Memorial Day weekend during the citywide yard sale.
Oh,
That's the plan, to try to drive more people to see the store, because if we set it up like a yard sale type time during a time where there's lots of people going through Newport and visiting all the different places, then we can see more people come our way.
Okay, so that's your sort of grand opening or the soft opening, whichever it turns out to be. Do you visualize being open regularly after that, or 3 days a week, or it's finding that balance between we can do it all and personal sanity, right?
We actually talked a little bit last night about the days of the week that we're planning on being open. It's not set in stone yet or anything. We have the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the Tuesday, and then Wednesday we're thinking about doing as a drop-off day. So that would be the days that people could come and drop off things.
Speaking from a piece of my checkered past, which was being involved with a thrift store for IROC, drop-off was the hardest thing to manage.
Yeah.
Because people drop off everything, whether you want it or not, or whether it's drop-offable.
Right. So we are very much, we do kind of a curated drop-off. It's not just like drop a bag and we'll get to it. It's very much like the bag comes, we look through the bag, we take the items that make sense for the thrift store.
Sure.
And then, you know, if it's something that doesn't make sense, we direct folks to some of the donation bins that are around the community. But yeah, it's the idea of doing it on a Wednesday is really because while we were open on a regular basis, folks were coming in, you know, mid-shift, opening, and had 3 or 4 bags, which was right in the center of the store, which is, you know, it's like you said, not a super large store, so real estate is pretty prime there, and so I think this has been kind of the idea to move it to Wednesday would be a way, and then have folks that may come on another day say, we actually only take them on Wednesdays. Here's the reason why.
Right.
And yeah, I think it will help with the flow. It will also, we have a person that is interested in being that like donation person, and has been doing it. Yeah, has been doing it for us before and been kind of going through things. So we're really excited to be able to build that in. So that we've kind of got a professional curated donation picker, which is really exciting.
And then there are always those who decide to dump at the door.
Yeah, that was a problem when we first opened. It was we'd walk into bags of things just like stacked up. It got better over time as we were there on once it started kind of the flow was more normal. It definitely, the number dropped down. We also have been informing folks that come in that may be dropping off, like if you ever see anything, just, or you're driving past, you see somebody dropping off when we're closed, just let them know. We'll happily take it, but it's only when we're open.
Right.
Because the last thing we want is a bag being sat there for, over a day or two and then it be spread out.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So do you have, it sounds like you have all of these pieces laid out. It sounds like it's going to happen, as it is that you have enough volunteers.
Yeah, I'm really, really hopeful for the future. I think that it was, as much as we didn't want to have to shut it down for the time period that we did, I think it's given us a good moment of pause and reflection and how do we do this thoughtfully so that we can continue going forward. Last night, Dan, who used to run the store, I was talking to him after our meeting that we have every week at 371 Main Street here in Newport, and said, I think this is I think this is going to really work. Like, I think we've got all the pieces in play. Obviously, the biggest piece is the volunteer, but I think fundamentally all of the kind of the pillars that we need to get it off the ground are in existence and have structure. So now all it takes is the volunteers to really open the store back up.
And sign up for their shifts and show up.
Right.
Do you think you have enough?
I don't think we have enough yet.
So one of the things that we can do here now is let people know how they can sign up, because the reality is volunteers come and go because life, day jobs, kids intrude. Isn't that amazing? These pesky day jobs. So you need a continual supply of volunteers.
Yeah, so we are, right now, we continue to meet every Wednesday at 371 Main Street from 5:30 to 6:37. And that's been kind of our opportunity to really have conversation about reopening, but we also have this Facebook group. And the Facebook group is definitely the best way, kind of entry point in, because we can get folks' names, we can get their contact information, we can put them on our listserv for emailing out. And then eventually, as we kind of near closer to opening, right now we're still kind of in the planning stage, but as we get closer to opening, Jen and I are working on a schedule and what that will look like, and how many people are going to need to be in the store at any given time. We're looking for what we're calling volunteer captains, and these captains are kind of the folks that would be the go-to person when the store is open, and then all of those folks will still have the support of myself as the director of the program. I'll be as I had been before the closure, be in and out of the store at least weekly to make sure that everything is operating and they have the things that they need.
They had it covered.
They had it covered. Yeah, I just went there for fun.
Right, and a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I got to hang out with Dan and Steve and browse a little bit. But yeah, I think the goal is, once we have that list of volunteers and we have those three kind of core captains, that will really be able to hit the ground running and reopen the store.
So the three core captains do what roles?
Yeah, so like Jenna said, we're working on getting job descriptions out, and those will be posted, kind of cross-posted. They'll be on the Facebook group, they'll be on the NEKCA website, they'll be on the NEKCA Facebook group, the Seymour Thrift Store group. So we're trying to get the word out as quickly and as largely as we can. But the roles will really be kind of front of the house. So somebody that is doing really the cash register operations, whether it's them that are sitting on the cash register during the day or they are the one that's kind of overseeing it. It is a process that requires transfers of dollars, so we have to do cash outs at the end of the day. So that is one of the major roles. The second is kind of this idea of the volunteer overseer for scheduling purposes. And then the third would be somebody that is kind of coordinating the volunteers in the back of the house, sort of doing the stocking, the sorting, the pricing, to make sure that we are operating in the same way that we were before, but we're splitting up the duties across those kind of three captains.
Yeah, and those are significant jobs.
Yeah, they certainly are. It definitely will take the right person. I know that we've got some interest in some of the roles, but I think the big one that we seemingly have a hole in right now is the cash register front of the house person, and that's kind of our big ask. That is a big ask one, and that's our biggest kind of pin right now that we're looking for, is someone to run the front of the house.
And who do you think that person would be if this was a perfect world? Who's going to walk in and say, I got these skills?
Ideally, it'd be Dan and Steve.
Yeah, well.
But they have transitioned into new roles within NEKCA, which we are really thankful to still have them. But I think somebody that has some experience with doing, whether it was working at a restaurant or at a gas station, someone that has the experience of doing the cash register. The cash out is not a hard process.
No, it's not.
It's just a process that you have to do a couple times to really get in the flow and understand the kind of, the challenging 1980s cash register that we have.
You're not the only store around this area with unusual technology, shall I say.
Yeah. The funny thing is it's actually brand new. They just really haven't kind of updated the systems of how they operate. So we do both cash and we do cards through the Square program. So somebody that's comfortable with a little bit of technology, somebody that has some cash experience, and then somebody that just wants to be the front face of the Seymour thrift store.
It's actually a fun job to do. I'm not so thrilled at the idea of the cash count up, because most of us don't like counting money.
Right.
But the social part of being the person there. So if you have somebody with some people skills and who really enjoys meeting people.
Right. And that's really what that position has to be. I think we can train in and figure out all of the other details of, the cash and all the systems, but somebody that just loves the community and wants to, be a part of a program that really does make a difference for Newport.
So hopefully somebody's listening to this and they're all going to come and knock on your doors.
Yes. If somebody doesn't have Facebook, they can always reach out to me on my email. It's cwinterson@NEKCA.org. Always happy to have a conversation, see where we're at, and get them rolled into the group. And we would be happy to take anybody that's got the experience.
So I didn't realize there were 3 Facebook pages, for example. I've seen 2 of them, but I didn't know there was a 3rd.
Yeah, so we have the Seymour Thrift Store Volunteers Facebook page, which is the new one that Jenna is kindly operating.
Yeah.
We have the Seymour Thrift Store Facebook page that we've been operating since the store reopened, and then we have the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Facebook page that we use. And then, of course, Newport Rocks, all of the places where we post, we cross-post things that are community-driven.
And there are a lot of places to cross-post.
Yeah.
Which is both the good news and the going to make me crazy news.
Yeah. Social media is quite the thing. It has been nothing but helpful for us, and there are challenges, as I'm sure everyone can understand, but it has been the way to get the word out of what's going on.
Yeah, it's amazing how in some regions social media does that. I mean, it does good things, it does not so good things too. And then other geographic areas, they just don't use it.
Right.
There's some communication with Front Porch Forum, but not much.
Yep. And that is also, thank you for saying that, that is another area that we'll be posting some of the stuff on.
Good.
I think it's crucial in a place like the Northeast Kingdom, where we're so spread out geographically that it's important to stay connected. And one of the easiest ways right now in the day and age that we're in is through social media.
I know. I both love it and hate it, obviously, because I use it a lot. So, but it is something that we didn't have before.
Right.
And obviously there'll be flyers and things like that, and the word of mouth that we all need.
Yeah.
But I think one of the other pieces, and the thing with community action organizations, and I had some experience of them when I lived in New York, upstate New York, rural area too, was that community action organizations did some really, really good work. They made differences in people's lives. What they didn't do, though, was the community part of the action. So we never saw community groups coming together, learning skills and being able to take those forward. And what you've proposed in doing this got me really excited, because that's, in my model of the world, what community action means. It's a community with leadership, not knocking that in any way. And the organization has the stability and the power to be able to do that, to be the bulk, the post in the middle, and have communities learn and move out from there. But that's how communities grow and develop. And I think what got me excited was, great, you've got the thrift store taken care of. What else can community groups do?
Yeah, well, so Northeast Kingdom Community Action is a 501c3, so we are governed by a board of directors. We are often looking for board of director seats as there's turnover, and right now that is one of the best ways to get into, to really get into it and do some community work. We also have policy councils for our Head Start programming, which is community-led. And then we have advisory councils for both in the north and the south for our youth centers.
That's the traditional organizational point of view.
Yeah.
And I've both worked in organizations and been on boards. What interests me is the community part of it, because this was community-led, community-driven,
Right.
and it's great.
Yeah.
It can't all be top-down. It's grassroots where the energy and the power are.
Totally agree. And we're so lucky to have the community be behind the thrift store.
Yeah, but the community can be behind other projects that your organization has.
Yeah.
And I realize that I'm putting you in a difficult spot by saying, so where do you think the community could take some action next?
Yeah.
But take off your community action hat for a moment and think about where can community come in, because we're going to have to up here.
Right. Yeah, right
It's
now.
not just with NEKCA, it's everywhere else.
Oh, of course. I mean, community action right now, what I think of kind of the challenges that we're faced in the coming days of the administration
Could be years.
Could be years. Right now, the biggest program that is needing community action and community support is our food security program.
Yeah.
We have really great partnerships here in Newport, across the kingdom, where we are able to get food from some of the big box stores in our area,
Right.
but that's not enough.
No.
It goes quick, and another, again, as a result of some of these federal drawbacks, we're seeing decreased support in the federal funding and
Everything.
general funding of
Everything.
food, right? So that is a place that we could use any sort of assistance in. We run 4 food shelves throughout the kingdom. 4 main food shelves, and then we have a
Yes.
couple of smaller ones in different locations, but Canaan, Island Pond, St. Johnsbury, and Newport. And we see a lot of folks every day, and we serve a lot of folks through that, and that often is the entry point into the community action world, because it's something that is always there and does not have any sort of stipulations behind it other than just showing up and filling out a form. That is where we need the community's help right now. That would be probably my biggest cry for help right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important one and a good one. And it's not just about help. What you want is community initiative.
Right.
There are places like Vermont Land Trust who have community gardens here. Is Head Start still connected with you guys, or has that gone over to Nichols and?
Nope, Head Start's still run underneath.
Okay, because
Yep.
Head Start had one of the community plots there
They do.
last year. They do.
I believe they have it again this year as well.
Good. But there could be other volunteers who could be growing wonderful, fresh produce
Right.
that could benefit NEKCA and everybody else.
Yeah, fresh produce is obviously hard to come by in Vermont because we only get it for a small period of time.
But when we have it, we
It's-
have tons of it.
Right, it's in abundance and it's all amazing.
We upset our neighbors by putting zucchini in their cars and on their porches.
We will always take the zucchini that may end up on the rogue porch. Produce is something that is abundantly important to any, like the cornerstone of any sort of healthy
Right.
meal. And we do get produce in the summer, but
Not enough.
not enough. And it also, while we do get the produce and we don't have enough of it, if we did have enough of it, we could also think about processing it. We do have processors at all of our locations to be able to process and freeze for the winter months when it's a little bit more difficult to get some of those items that are still
Right.
needed and of importance to somebody's meal.
So if there were volunteers who could take on the role of encourager to get those with big gardens, and a lot of us in Vermont have big gardens with big producers. And some sell at farmers markets, but a lot don't.
Right.
They just stick out tables in front of their houses.
Yeah, we are always open for donations of those pieces of produce or extra cans, that can of lima beans that
Yeah.
has been sitting in the back of the cabinet. You may not like it, but another family very well
course.
could. So I
How
think,
could anyone not like lima beans?
I don't know why I always pick on lima beans. That's the one I always say. But yeah, it's just any sort of entrance in, any sort of donation of food, even if it's, you know, you're not growing, but you've got a couple extra dollars that can be put into NEKCA's funding for that.
Right.
All of it matters. And it doesn't take a ton of money to feed a family for a whole
Right.
year. And
Exactly.
that's kind of, we're going to be working on a new donation fundraiser that will be specific around how much money it costs to feed a family for a year, in the hopes that folks will be willing to donate that amount so that we can really start. It is going to take the community. We're seeing more and more food shelves pop
Right.
up around, which is great, but it also, every time a food shelf pops up, it usually competes with another for some of the small amounts of dollars that are out
Right.
there from the feds. So
You can't count on the feds anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, we can't.
it's definitely
really
been challenging.
can't.
We
Yeah.
you know, are always expecting the worst and hoping for the best. But it is going to be challenging over these next 3.
Which is why volunteer groups, volunteer-led, are going to be so important.
Right. Very much so. And again, so thankful for Jenna and Denise and all of the folks that are showing up
Yeah.
to our meetings, because we all love the thrift store, and it was
Yeah.
the hardest thing to do so far in my career was to have to temporarily close it. And
It was going so well. It was, how could this possibly be? Why did the plug get pulled?
yeah, it's challenging. The major piece is that, you know, it can sustain itself, pretty much sustain itself on the sales that it had, but the challenge is keeping it staffed, and that was coming out of a lot of discretionary dollars from our
Right.
agency, and that was kind of one of the areas of, you know, we can't be spending discretionary dollars right now.
No.
We need to be
No.
holding on to them. So that's, you know, that is ultimately the reason why we've taken this hiatus. And knowing when we did that we weren't going to be done for good, because we can't be done for good. It's such an important piece of this community that
Right.
it can't be gone forever.
Right, exactly. Well, it obviously isn't going to be gone
Right.
forever. And let's face it, we all need clothes.
Yeah. Yes.
Not necessarily as many as some of us have, but we need clothes. We need the household goods. And as people find apartments or change their living situation, they need to replace what they had.
Right. And I think the biggest piece, one of the major reasons why, for all of the reasons I love the thrift store, but one of the biggest reasons is that it really was a community gathering place for anybody to do shopping.
Yes.
It was, you know, whether you're coming in on a voucher or you're, you know, coming, and we had folks coming from Canada that were super excited about the goods that were in there. It didn't matter who you were when you walked into the thrift
Right.
store. You had opportunity to get the things that you needed and the items that were necessary for your home, for your family, whatever it may have been. So that's why we're so committed to reopening it, because it is a cornerstone to this community, and it has served a lot of folks since we've opened again.
And the coffee corner part of it is also a way for people to begin to plug into the community.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you've worked there, Jenna, how many contacts, human contacts, have you made that you wouldn't have done otherwise?
Well, I was kind of more in the back working area, but I did make the contacts at the store, Steve and Dan and the other
Yeah.
ladies who worked in the back area, Penny and Kathy, and one other person who was there from time to time. So I met them, and but that's I'm not very I'm not as much as a talkative person as some people are.
But the beauty of those relationships are that Dan and Steve cultivated all of those relationships,
Yes,
and
they
those are the
did.
people that are showing up to the meetings
Yeah.
religiously week after week.
Yeah, they
So
did.
there's something there. There's some sort of secret sauce. And I think even the times that I went in, you know, I would jump in for an hour or so when I'm up in the area, and I'd always meet a new face and always have a conversation about the thrift store or NEKCA or
Right.
the community. So it really is that place. it is really that meeting space. And I would love to have an extra little corner. If I could just like push a wall out a little bit more to get a little extra like coffee corner space, it would be amazing to have like a designated space rather than just around the bubbler with a couple seats.
Fabulous to have a designated space, and maybe there is a way. I mean, who knows what a group of creative volunteers can do?
Right, right.
And particularly if that is seen to be a very important part, and I think it is. And
I would agree.
yeah,
it definitely
and I
is.
bet you could find a corner space somewhere.
Yeah, we definitely, if, like I said, if I could blow out a couple walls and do all the things that I wanted to do, we'd be pretty lucky. But I think that for now, we've got a coffee space, which is great.
Yeah. And if people want to donate coffee, they can do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that is always welcome. Coffee, tea, whatever it may be. Every now and again, folks will bring in a couple of pastries that will sit out for folks to grab when they're in. It's just a community space, and I think Newport has some, but this is one that I feel like everybody really felt welcomed and able to access.
Newport actually doesn't have community spaces, and it's something that groups have tried to get for a long time. They really tried when grant money was apparently around to have a community center, and it got shot down every time. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. I could make some suggestions about what I think some of them are. But there is a need, and there really isn't a space. Not free space in the sense that it's not moderated or controlled. It's not a space for people to come together and talk about what they need and what they could do to get what they need.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of community is that a community space is amazing, and so many places that have those are so successful. But community is also going to the library and sitting down and having a conversation, seeing each other at the markets, you know, in the warm months, which we are not in right now today currently. You know, sitting down, I see people sitting in the park, and that's community to me. And I think, yes, aspirational goals, 100%. We need a community space, and we need a large community space.
Well, we can start with a small one.
Right, but we can start with just that friendly hello, that friendly conversation in our community.
And agreed.
Now more than ever, we need to come together as a community.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so.
We're about out of time. What I'd love you guys to do, or Jenna, because you're going to be doing the volunteer piece of this, is come back, and not necessarily for a long session, but just a short update. Because I think there's ways that we can do that, and we can put that out. Yeah, that sounds great. I think also folks, you know, I know I keep referencing the social media pages that are not always accessible for everybody. No, they're not, but they are.
They are there.
Big percentage of people.
Yeah, and we also will be utilizing the local papers to post some information as things go, to try to get as many folks as we can. But always, if anybody's interested and they're watching right now, and they don't feel like they have a way to connect via phone through our main line, they can ask for me. I will get back to them, and I will figure out a way to get them connected. That's great. Well, thank you both for coming. Yeah, thank you so much for having us.